So when we start talking about translations, we're doing exactly what it sounds like. We're translating words into numbers and operations. The idea of translating is, pretty profound when you think about, we could translate from English to French. Well, other people could, I couldn't. All we're doing is translating English to numbers. And there is one basic premise that we stand by when we are doing these translations, and then we look for exceptions. So the basic premise is the idea that everything goes in order. And then what we're going to do after we sort of look at that very quickly is we're going to talk about the exceptions to that. Because if we remember that everything goes in order with these exceptions, all you really have to do is remember the exceptions. So this first idea here, I have 2 minus a number, and usually if I was doing this in a class, I'd say, I would read that out loud. I'd say, all right, everybody take out their pencil and write 2 minus a number. And most people would write 2 minus a number or some version of that. A few people will usually write the words out, and then a few more will usually be indecisive, and I'm just kidding when I say that, but they're not sure what I want, so they decide to write both. But the obvious part of this is that they can still write this translation. Now that said, we start looking for things that are exceptions. And the first exception is this idea that sometimes the operation is listed first, and then the things that you're working on or that you're operating on are listed after that in the order that they're listed. So in this case, you see that I have this nice sentence that says the sum. So that tells us that I am adding, and then it tells us what we are adding, and we put those in that order. We are adding x and 3. So operator first, and then what we're operating on in the order that we will write them. So that's our first exception, and it's pretty minor. The next exception is we've got the idea of words that flip the order. And I've got 3 sentences here, and you'll see I've got a few things in red, so that's your clue. Again, in class, I usually do this a little bit different. I write them up and we try to figure it out. One of the reasons why this feels a little strange for some folks is that when we start dealing with word problems and start trying to do translations, we are doing 2 things. We are dealing with the math concepts, but we're really dealing with critical reading skills. So we're trying to combine 2 things. We're not actually doing math when we're doing these translations. We're using critical reading skills. Once we've done the translation, that's when we're actually doing the math. When we look at this, and I've got these 3 sentences, it says 2 less than a number, 2 minus a number, and 2 subtracted from a number. And we have to sort of decide, are these the same? Are they different? So as we look at these, this says 2 less, and I'm going to go through and just make a few notes here. Less. So there's our operator. So we know that we are subtracting. The next sentence says 2 minus. Again, we're subtracting. And the last sentence here says subtracted. So we can see that all of these are dealing with subtraction. Also, we can see that it's 2 and a number, 2 and a number, 2 and a number. So what is special is these little extra words that we've got in here. So the first one says 2 less than a number. So if you listen to what it's saying, it is saying that I am subtracting 2 from something else. I'm subtracting 2 from a number. So I will tell people to look for this than as one of the words that flips the order. So we flip the order, we have a number minus 2. Now this one says 2 minus a number. There is literally nothing interesting going on in there. It's just going right in order. So we say 2, there's my minus that we put in there, a number. And then we look at the third one. The third one says 2 subtracted from a number. So again, we have to read this and think about what it's saying. 2 is being subtracted from a number, so the x goes first, and we're doing the x minus 2. So again, this is flipping the order. So this than and from, these are key words to look for. They don't always mean the same thing. You always, have to look for context clues. That's like any other reading problem. You're always looking for the context of it, but those are two key words that can flip the order. The next idea that we have here is, are all three of these, do they all mean the same thing? And the answer is no. 3 minus 5 is not the same as 5 minus 3. So the order of these things matter, particularly when you've got things like subtraction and division. Now there is one more that I'm going to just add here. It's a little bit different, but it's going to be 2 added to a number. And we don't really get excited about this one because when things are being added, of course, we know that the order doesn't matter. But this word also, if we were reading this for precision, 2 added a number. So 2 is being added to something else. So again, it's flipping the order. Let's see if there we go. So again, it's flipping the order. So the x and then the 2. So this is an extra word that you can add in there. Again, we don't really see it except when it comes to addition. But if we are trying to be precise in our translation, we would want to remember that. So our next exception is dealing with these guys. Now, again, we've got 2 sentences, and I'd like to do this because it's nice to have the contrast. The first one says 2 times the sum of 3 in a number. The second one says the sum of 2 times a number and 3. And if you look carefully, the words are exactly the same. They're just in a different order. And this, again, it's the idea of those critical reading skills. The exact same words, but in a different order, and the order matters. You'll notice that I have the times the sum in red. I'm going to go ahead and skip that one and go down to this one because the second one we're familiar with, the sum of. So it's listing what we're multiplying. And then it says, what we're adding. And then it says 2 times a number. So that's 2x and 3. So we're adding 2x and 3. And this is something that we dealt with earlier. One of our add-ins is a little bit more interesting, that 2x, but it's still just an add-in. Now when we look at that first one, the times the sum of the number, I don't know how that disappeared, but I'm going to go ahead and get that back in there. So 2 times the sum of a number. That times the sum is what's important. And what you're looking for, the clue that you're looking for, is an operator acting on another operator. And remember what operators are. They're the plus, the minus, the subtraction, the division, all that stuff. So 2 times the sum. And what it does, times the sum, we know that we've got a sum in there, so we're adding. And we're multiplying 2 times a sum. What are we adding? We're adding 3 and a number. So the times the sum is a clue. It's an operator acting on an operator. And the clue, or the thing that it's telling us is we're going to need a parenthesis for that. So you need to go ahead and practice these. And you may find that the more you do it, the less stressful it's going to be. one of the big reasons that we have to do this, and I'll have another one that is talking about doing the same thing but with equations. But one of the reasons we do this is because these are skills that we are going to use directly as we start working on more interesting word problems. We need these skills because we need to make translations. This is one of the reasons why I think sometimes word problems are perceived as difficult. It really isn't the math that's difficult. It's making the translations. So practice the heck out of these.